Good morning, GreenStalk gardeners. I'm Susie, lead gardener here at GreenStalk. If you would like to have your GreenStalk looking like this next spring, keep watching. One of our most exciting projects we've done here was planting tulips last year. We thought we would share with you today what we learned along the way. One thing that I think is important is to do your research. Choose the bulbs that you want to grow, learn everything about them, and then learn how to grow them in your zone. Some zones use pre-chilled bulbs or chilled in the refrigerator, and then some you can plant and store them away throughout the winter, and they will be blooming in the spring for you. One of the things you need to decide ahead of time is how you're going to overwinter your planter. Are you going to put it inside an unheated garage? Are you going to cover it with a frost cover, bubble wrap, or burlap? Last year, I put ours in the garage. Whenever it's in the lower 20s, I feel like they just need that protection. I will say when it got to the negative degrees outside, I actually went in the garage and put a frost cover over it inside the garage. One more thing to consider is to buy early. One thing that happened to me is I had the most gorgeous bulb in my cart, and I went back a day later and they were not available. So once you decide on what you want, go ahead and purchase them. Okay, when to plant. This goes back to the research. You have to figure out when to plant in your zone. Most bulbs need between 12 and 15 weeks of cold stratification. That's whether you have to put them in your refrigerator or buy pre-chilled, or you're going to plant them and store them through the winter. One of the things that you need to think about is using light and fluffy soil. In the GreenStalk, you want to make sure that it drains well so the bulbs won't rot. If they stay wet the whole time, there's a possibility that they will rot. So try to make sure that you use light and fluffy soil that drains very well. To fertilize or not fertilize, what I have learned in my research is that the bulbs themselves contain everything they need to grow that big, beautiful flower. I've seen where people grow them in just water and rocks, but the gardener in me wants to feed them. So last year I used compost. This year I'm going to use a little worm castings. Many gardeners use bone meal, and there is a product out there called bulb tone that you can also use. When you're planting, you want to make sure to do the flat root end side down and the pointy end up. A general rule is to plant 3 to 4 times the bulb height, which would give you 3 to 4 inches for a 1-inch bulb. For us, last year, I planted them much deeper because they were going to have long stems and I didn't want them to fall over as much. So I planted them about 7 to 8 inches deep. One last tip I have for you all is to keep your soil slightly moist. Not soaked, but slightly moist. Last year, my planter was in the garage, and I think throughout the winter I watered it maybe 3 times. I chose to take a cup and pour into the individual pockets to keep from flooding the garage. But if you want to use the water reservoir, that is also fine. This year we're going to plant foxtrot pink along with muscari. Most people call them grape hyacinths. I'll be planting the tulips lower than the grape hyacinths because they're a much smaller bulb. We look forward to sharing our beautiful planter with you this spring. As a reminder, you can always reach out to support@greenstalkgarden.com. Happy gardening!